Many thanks for staying with In Your Interest. Your Instagram reel, your social media post, your YouTube video, your X post, it could all now be treated like a news channel. That's right. The government is calling it regulation, but critics call it more than just control. For years, the digital space has been the so-called Wild West of news, where independent creators, satirists, we're talking about citizen journalists, they could all speak their minds without the heavy hand of traditional regulation. That landscape has fundamentally changed because new changes proposed to India's information technology rules could bring social media creators, YouTubers, influencers under tighter government oversight. The proposed rules have officially brought individual content creators and influencers under a strict legal scanner, expanding oversight to include anyone who generates news-related content, current affairs-related content. The government is introducing a three-tier mechanism that will cover platform content beyond just registered news publishers. An interdepartmental committee will have wider powers. It can now examine matters referred directly by the government, not only the formal complaints. And platforms will have to follow all government directives on content. If they fail to do so, they risk losing their safe harbor protection. And this means they could be held liable for the content posted by their own users. The government says these changes are only clarificatory. They are meant to bring better legal clarity and make existing orders more enforceable. Officials argue that many platforms have not been complying with advisories, so binding directions have become necessary. And the rules will also allow the government to seek data from platforms and issue direct blocking orders. However, critics, on the other hand, worry that unregistered creators and small influencers will now come under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and the Interdepartmental Committee. Action can be triggered without any public complaint. The government can directly refer content for review, and there is concern that this may create a fear of action and chill free speech, especially on satire, on policy criticism and political commentary. Small creators may also face a higher compliance burden. In short, the digital news ecosystem is moving towards more direct content level regulation. What used to be mostly self-regulation by platforms is shifting to greater government involvement. The big questions that we're trying to decode: if the government can now trigger blocking orders without a formal public complaint, what safeguards exist to prevent these rules from being used to silence political dissent? How will the Interdepartmental Committee distinguish between sharp political satire and user-generated news that requires regulation? And with small creators now facing the same oversight as massive and big media houses, are we witnessing the end of the independent citizen journalism in the country? With us on the broadcast, Vaibhav Malu, Managing Director, Enzo Group and Digital Technology Expert, and Siddharth Pai, Managing Partner, 314 Capital and Social Media Expert, who's with us on the broadcast. Mr. Pai, let's get the snowball rolling here. Are you for these IT rules? Are you against these IT rules? Because for years, misinformation has also gone on unchecked on social media. So this is what the supporters are saying. They're saying, shouldn't anyone acting like a news publisher with the current affairs content also be held accountable like one?
I think this is a case of curing dandruff by decapitation, where the cure actually seems far worse than what the ail ends up actually being. I think the intent of the government as of now is to prevent people who end up using social media platforms to publish fake news, etc., and to bring them to task. But given how wide the ambit of news and current affairs actually is, even if you're actually reporting on, let's say, something as trivial as a traffic jam that ends up actually being nearby. I'm from Bangalore, so traffic jams are an everyday part of life for that matter. And some official ends up actually facing an issue with that. That goes directly to that particular committee. That committee can end up actually looking into it. Any sort of satire against a particular official or even members of that particular group who ends up looking into it can end up actually coming under scope. Now, the safeguards are actually missing. The government has actually written this entire piece on the purview of what they believe is a mischief they're trying to remedy. But it's citizen-led safeguards and the judicial oversight that's actually required is actually missing as of now. So that is something I think that's actually exceptionally onerous. The additional part that also comes in is the fact that the digital safe harbor rules are actually linked to this. For that matter, means that all the social media platforms that exist in the country, the large ones, the small ones, emerging ones, the startups, etc., all of them will end up actually having to invest very, very heavily into this sort of content oversight. And in case they end up missing it in that 3-hour window, the chance of them actually losing safe harbor and being held personally liable ends up actually becoming exceptionally hard. So I think the rules, the intent is clear. There is a far better way of actually doing this, and the heavy-handedness that's coming out in these rules as of now does actually require some level of balancing. The fact that it's open for comments is good, but what degree the comments are actually integrated, and given the fact that they're going to hold everything in a fiduciary capacity, no one knows what those comments end up actually looking like. So it's important for citizens to push back, make sure that there are safeguards in place before we end up actually seeing this come to light.
No, yeah, absolutely. I still can't move beyond the, trying to get rid of dandruff by decapitation. My bad, my apologies. The government, meanwhile, says, Mr. Pai, that this is a clarificatory move. So, help us understand, why should genuine creators fear regulation if they're not really violating any rules, before I go on to Mr. Malu?
No, the clarification was supposed to come out in lieu of publishers. Publishers are supposed to be larger media houses, etc., that end up actually pushing this sort of content. An everyday person who ends up actually sharing some particular piece of news or something they may actually read and giving some comment on that comes under current affairs. Now look at the terms news and current affairs. Even from the very beginning of this bill, people have said what constitutes news, what constitutes current affairs. There's no definition that's actually given to it as of now. Me updating someone and saying it's my birthday today, can actually constitute news. Me actually saying that, hey, there's a traffic jam that's happening here, there's an accident that's happening here, some politicians actually going by, they block the notes, that's also current affairs. Now, therefore, the ambiguity in the regulation being extended to a larger scheme of people and to everyday ordinary people who may not have the kind of machinery that larger publishers doesn't actually constitute a clarification. That's actually the biggest issue with this entire bill that's coming up as of now.
That's a credible point. Mr. Malu, what do you make of this? Small creators, and Mr. Pai has a point over here. Small creators don't have massive, big legal teams or, big compliance structures. They're not able to absorb the shock. Are these rules disproportionately hitting independent voices, the small-time, YouTube creators or, influencers? Whilst big players are able to adapt easily, it's going to be the small players that are going to bear the brunt. And what's your opening assessment of this?
Let me tell you something. A few days ago, there was a small news creator based out of Lucknow who has created something that has linked me and my father, an Indian actress, and a politician, a leader. Utterly false. And I was directly impacted by that. So obviously, I am for regulation. I am saying that misinformation and censored information should be regulated. I think Government of India IDCs of Ministry of IT requires a large manpower to actually go through online content and actually see what is worth censoring, worth blocking, and it requires also precedents to be set wherein certain kind of news pieces. And
Mr. Malu, there are various other mechanisms that can keep misinformation and disinformation and the spread of their, in check. If every independent creator posting any kind of news or current affairs content on the internet can face the same scrutiny as a big, massive media house, I mean, aren't we effectively turning the entire government into the editor of the internet? The new editor-in-chief of the internet is then going to be the government.
Sir, this is not the only country that India is actually late in coming up with these rules. Misinformation can be deadly. Misinformation can be very bad for you. Government of India is not stopping people from posting online. They're just saying don't post wrong things, don't post incorrect information, don't post censored information. Be credible. And that's with the power of internet, with millions of users per handle, with at least thousands of users per handle, information can go spread like wildfire if not regulated. It's just being regulated. I mean, there's still no reports of any action taken on the kinds of handle or the kinds of satires that are going to be blocked or reviewed. But it's going to be some precedents before they're set. We cannot decide whether this is going in the right direction or not.
Okay, Mr. Pai, what do you make of that? Mr. Malu just gave us an example, a very personal, example. He says,
It's true, I can.
Yeah, exactly. He just gave us that example. And with no complaint that is needed for action, critics are saying that this gives the government sweeping powers. But when we need proactive intervention, which is absolutely necessary in this era of viral deep fakes and the damage that they can cause, what's your say on that? What's your reading and assessment on that?
No, I think, it's two sides of the same coin. There are obviously very, very genuine cases, and there have been malicious campaigns that have actually run on social media that do end up actually causing issues. If you look at SEBI, SEBI also has actually put the onus on listed companies to end up squashing rumors the moment they end up actually coming up over there. So that's SEBI's version of trying to attempt that. I think this is MeIT's version trying to do it. That being said, there has to be balance. So the one thing I actually said in my opening remarks also is there needs to be oversight to end up actually coming in. While the cases that Mr. Malu actually spoke about are genuine cases that do actually require redressal, and it is the onus and obligation of the intermediary platform to end up actually having a redressal mechanism to catch those sort of deepfakes, to make sure that if any information that's actually false, they end up flagging it, those particular notices or posts are actually taken down, etc. There has to be a balance to decide who ends up actually deciding what may be fake, what may actually true. In the case of Mr. Malu, it is obviously rather black and white. In cases that are more nebulous, where opinions end up actually coming in on broader patterns that emerge in the country, who's going to decide that? Is there going to be a group of bureaucrats who end up actually putting that? Is there a judicial review that you can end up actually putting into place? The redressal mechanisms are important. While the rest of the world has actually taken it upon themselves to end up regulating social media, and it is important to regulate social media, the degree of regulation, the degree of oversight, and the degree of accountability and judicial oversight has to end up actually putting in place. The rules
so you're saying it's a delicate balancing act, and there needs to be stronger redressal mechanisms at play. Because, one thing is for clear that these big, tech companies, they've long escaped accountability, and this finally fixes that accountability as well. Platforms often end up, ignoring advisories from the government.
No, very true. And see, what needs to end up happening, I think another part that's also important, the government has numerous advisories. Yeah. It's very, very hard to end up actually keeping track of all those particular advisories. There has to be a sort of system that says, look, if a notice has actually been raised and you're blatantly ignoring the advisory, then yes, maybe your safe harbor provision can end up actually coming under suspect for that matter. But to automatically end up actually pulling that out the moment it happens within a 3-hour period is tough for that matter. And there may be some corner of the internet, some part over there, and that ends up coming, and this may end up actually blowing up in a very, very short span of time. Does it start from when the very first post came about or when it actually became viral? No one actually knows. See, the intent is noble. The intent is good. The safeguards have to be put in place. I think, given the fact that they've actually gone overblown on the intent, the safeguards are actually missing. That clarity has to end up actually coming up as of now.
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair assessment. Mr. Malu, with satire, criticism, political commentary, all of this falling under the bracket of news and current affairs, critics are suggestive that, these rules risk creating a chilling effect on free speech, on democratic debate, on overarching regulation into restriction. What's your say on that?
So I say that with internet and with free speech, I think things are good. Things are always good. Democracy says free speech is your fundamental right. But wrong speech, saying wrong things, incorrect facts, derogatory remarks, abusive language, censored content, these things, if there is a redressal, if there's a mechanism to put an end to it, there has to be. It's good for the internet, and it adds to the credibility of India's other influencer bracket or the news channels that are actually credible, that actually give out real facts. So it adds to their credibility, and it eats upon the credibility of people who are spreading misinformation. But like I said, it's too early to say whether this is going in the right direction, because there have been no cases where anything prominent has been taken down yet. And once we have a precedent set, and then we have a redressal mechanism or a judicial redressal mechanism, which is quick during election times or during sensitive times, we will have a system that works. I mean, with the kind of content and the kind of penetration of smartphones have and internet has in this country, people can come up with any kind of content, which has to be sort of somewhat regulated, right? So I think that this law is put in place is going to be good, but how it really pans out.
But we do really need those safeguards and the safe rails that Mr. Pai has been talking about. We do need those redressal mechanisms are equally important. Otherwise, this is going to be a case of getting rid of dandruff by decapitation.
No, totally. I'm with Mr. Pai that I think redressal mechanism and grievance committee or whatever it is has to be there, so as to take complaints of people who are saying, okay, no, this is what I mean by this, and this is what I can take down, and this is what an arbitration desk or
but you don't need any formal complaint. That's the that's the moot point here, and that seems to be the the bone of contention. You don't need a complaint. The government can take charge and file complaint on its own. Well, all right. So the intent is noble. You need safeguards, and in the new age where so you've got so much of social media content that's flowing through our phones and everyday lives, it is also equally important. Many thanks, gentlemen, for taking on the time. I think it's important to have these discussions in the age of digital voices. The line between the creator and the publisher is blurring, but who draws that line, and How far can it go without crossing into actual control? Some food for thought. With that, completely run out of time. This is all the time we have for you on In Your Interest. We're going to see you again tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
Skoda Kushaq. Easy to love. Skoda.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
A shocking and heartbreaking incident has come to light from Vasai in Maharashtra, where a 3.5-year-old child was brutally assaulted by a rickshaw driver inside a residential colony. The accused allegedly picked up the child by his legs, swung him around and slammed him onto the ground. This horrifying act was caught on CCTV camera, and the visuals have left residents in deep shock. The incident happened at the Anupam Ghar complex in Vasai West between 7:30 and 7:45 p.m. in the evening. The accused has been identified as Sandeep Pawar, a resident of the same society. The child, identified as Vignesh Kondare, was playing in the society premises when the attack took place. He suffered serious injuries and is currently admitted to a hospital in Mira Road, where his condition is said to be critical. Locals in the area are extremely angry and demanding strict action against the accused.